Hello and welcome to another episode of The Local Dive. This is Alan Scott, joined by my co-hosts, Ashlyn Portero and Dean and Sarah. How
Hello,
we doing?
It's good to be together. Sorry.
Oh, man, I was ready for
my
it.
My thumb got caught. 9-minute anticlimactic.
Oh, nope, still popped. All right, there we go. I thought it was
the world
coming.
waits.
We left a little bit of silence, so.
And it's key lime today, which might as well be a Mountain Dew.
No, but I'm glad you enjoy it.
Yeah, it's the goods.
Good. Well, we're excited to jump into another episode. We'll be talking about friendships between men and women and why that may be controversial and how they can actually exist.
Oh boy, you thought alcohol got us in trouble.
Conservative evangelical circles. But before we do, we want to talk about, on the shallow end, characteristics of male friendships and female friendships, kind of, friendships amongst males.
This is like observations about.
Yes, observations,
Okay.
Maybe questions, just
Got it.
things that we want to know about friendships. Which I'll start because I have Ashlyn. Maybe you can answer this as a female.
Okay.
Sorry to put all the
I'm ready.
all the female responsibility on you. But why does everybody that's a girl have 9 besties? Like the definition of a best friend is that there should be
you're
one.
A close friend.
There should be one
I
best
think you're
friend.
underselling with 9.
Yeah, I'm trying to be generous.
15, 16.
Now it's like your entire wedding party, which is 20 people, and it's like, these are my best friends. So, yeah, what's the deal with that?
I mean, I don't know. I think that it, like everything else, becomes like this generalization, and so it can become like interchangeable for like my close friend, like my dear friend, whatever. And there's also like maybe sometimes you might think of like 3 people as like your best friends, but maybe one of those people, like maybe there's different dynamics in terms of like how close or how much you value one another or something like that. And so it's like, oh, well, if I say this person's my best friend, it doesn't mean that this other person isn't also my best friend or that I don't love them. And so then there's like this pressure to be like, all my close friends are my best friends. And so I just like to say one of my very best friends or one of my best friends or one of my good friends or something like that. That way, because then it's like, well, do you measure that by like just relational chemistry? Do you measure that by like length of time you've known the person? Like what's the measure of a best friend?
Yeah, I think those are all questions I've tried to figure out, because I'm like, somebody will post on Instagram, happy birthday to my bestie, whatever. And then the next week it's the same thing, but it's a different person. And I'm like, wait. Is there a change in status?
Yeah, I think it's just
Did
something
somebody
that you
jump the other
know
person?
deep down. You just intuit it.
Can I keep you on the witness stand for a minute?
Sure. Sure. I'm glad to share the female perspective.
Thank you. I'm learning. Can we also talk about birthdays on social media with girlfriends?
What do you mean?
Just the intensity of wishing your friend a happy birthday on Instagram. It also makes me laugh because it's like, hey, happy birthday. Here's a picture of me.
Right, with you.
With you.
Yeah. And I went and looked and found, it's always like with girls, it's like, I'm going to find the best pictures of me with my friend whose birthday it is. And then I'm going to find the worst, most embarrassing pictures of them to show that I'm funny, but also highlight like my attractiveness in these pictures.
And post like 9 pictures for their birthday.
But the good thing is that like at some point, at least this is true in my friend group, like now we've all like passed 30 and like we're all just tired. And so it's like, now we just like text each other and we're like, happy birthday. It's like, I don't have the emotional energy in 2020 to be posting like Instagram, like the 9 pictures. I mean, that's old anyways. That's like, I'm, showing my social. Yeah, exactly.
And guys won't even remember their friends' birthdays because they never heard it to begin with.
Yeah.
It's not even a forgetful thing. They just don't know.
Yeah. It's like, I go on Facebook and I'm like, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday today. Guess I'll send them a text message.
Definitely not acceptable as a female friend. You still have to know and wish the friend. Like on my calendar, on my my personal calendar, I have like my friends' birthdays marked because I'm like, I have to acknowledge it in some way.
I like forget my family's birthday. Like I'm definitely not going to remember my friends. No
my nieces and nephews, there's, gosh,
like 9 of them.
And 9 of them, forget something like that. Forget about it. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm happy if I can remember my wife's. Like that's a win for me.
Okay, I have a question. How I want to know, because I feel like it's unclear to me, like if you like are getting to know a guy and you're like, I want to hang out with this guy or be friends with him, what's like your first move towards, because like for girls it's like, hey girl, we should grab coffee, or like, we should hang out, or whatever it is. Or maybe you like connect over some like common thing. I think that's generally true for guys too. But like, talk to me about the evolution of a male friendship.
It's easier for me as a pastor to like pull the lunch card. Like, hey man, we should get together. That kind of thing. If I see somebody at church or something like that. But like friend wise, a lot of times you have guys are big on like common interest kind of things. So like guy friendships are usually around like a sport, or if it's politics, or I don't know
Some
what
sort of
I don't
common
know
activity.
I don't know what the superhero Star Wars computer guys are about, but like video game guys. I mean that's like a thing, right?
Yeah.
So those are just they're very oftentimes focused on that, or especially for married people, a lot of times they kind of inherited those guys because they're the husbands of their wife's friends. You know?
It's like, oh, now we're friends.
Yeah.
We run together now. Let's like find some common
Yeah,
ground.
and here's how you know that it's not legit and they really are just like inherited friends is you don't do anything outside of
Right,
the couple stuff. Yeah.
gatherings.
Like you have your own separate guys you actually like go do stuff with, kind of thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think it starts with like I would say it starts with food. Usually, it's like let's grab lunch or let's
definitely
do,
very food driven.
Whatever, and then you like oftentimes it will evolve to some activity, and you may not really even talk. Like like you go do this thing, you go watch it, you go watch us, you go to a football game together, and you're like, oh, how's things? They're good, cool, yeah, oh.
Yeah,
great,
see,
great
in
pass.
the female world, it's like I have friends that I have been close friends with for like 10 years. And we're just at the point where like we can ride in a car and like not talk. And it's not weird. It's not like I'm not like harboring some type of like, angst within me about the person or just life in general where like I just need to talk about it. It's like we can just be like comfortable and silent together.
Well, and then like the stereotypical, like you get home and your wife will be like, oh, how's so and so and their spouse or whatever. You're like, good, I think. What'd you talk about? The football game. It's
yeah,
like
totally.
like,
I don't know the refs.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So it's just a very different kind of style of friendship.
Back to the birthday thing real quick. Mary Catherine Gay, who's one of our church members here, actually almost a founding member. She's been here as long as anybody. She anytime she does like a friend's birthday, like best friend birthday thing, I always text her because it'll be like 25 pictures of like her best friend, and her, and I'll write and be like, by any chance is today Nicole's birthday? I wasn't sure. I didn't have for any time she does it, I always give her a hard time.
That's great.
Yeah, girls can be, but it's like it's also just fun. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Is it expected?
I mean, again, I think it's different for every friend group. Like I said, my friends now, we're just like, oh, like we're just tired. Like there's just only so much energy.
Is that agreed upon though, or does it just happen? Like is it like we're just not going to post anymore in a group text?
Maybe like a little. I feel like it's like, again, I feel like it's something you just sort of feel out. You're like, this year we're not bringing like big birthday energy to social media, and that's okay. But like next year might be different. We might be renewed. And,
positive vibes, but no big birthday.
This is my favorite local dive so far.
And we might be like next year I might come out swinging because it's 2021 and I've got a new take on life. And I'm going to blast social media with all of like my friend love. But this year is just not that year.
Are there different levels of how many pictures you get on a birthday post? Like,
yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like you need to go all in. Like, I feel like if you're posting, do us a favor and just do like one picture. That's my personal preference. Like, you don't need like this swipe to see 10, but if you're going to do Instagram stories, like give us a few to click through and like we can see, different settings of your friendship. I'm fine if someone wants to do that.
I'll rock on. I'm learning over here. Taking notes. I turned 40 in November, so I better get some stinking love from y'all on Instagram. Is all I gotta say.
I'll post.
You better post.
I have one more question on because this is very stereotypical, but girls as friends go to the bathroom together. Like when in the friendship does that start? Like, is that just instantly like we're out, we go to the bathroom together, or is it like?
Why are you? Dean is laughing about that. Do you want to let us know? Please speak into why women go to the bathroom
I just
together.
have a question, and it's terrible. Isn't it weird to like? How do I say this? Like
pee next to
someone.
someone.
Thank you.
Don't guys do that?
No, you can't hear it because they're urinals.
Okay, that blows my mind. There is less structure
Oh, boy.
around you at a urinal than there is in stalls. Like,
It's been a fun run,
how do you
guys.
not hear
No,
it?
there's a rule with guys. You can't, if there's like an
Like,
open
you
one,
don't-
that's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
it's,
but you're in the
there's-
same room.
It's an unspoken code.
Yeah.
But I mean, but typically we're not going. It's not intentional to go together. You know, like we
Yeah.
don't go as buddies.
But I mean,
there's-
like, if I'm like sitting at a table at a restaurant, I'm not like, I'm going to the bathroom. Who wants to come? Like, if you do that, like, that's maybe some people do that. I don't do that.
is that a younger girl thing, like a teenage girl thing more?
Maybe.
Or
Yeah,
is
I
it,
think that's more like we're at our like
Okay.
16th birthday party, and I need to go talk to Taylor about how so and so doesn't like me, or I like so and so, but they don't know. Like, I think that's a little more how that goes.
I have one more birthday thing. Sorry.
Wow, we're really riding the
we
birthday
keep,
train.
Keep coming back.
I'm
Why-
happy to bust the female stereotypes.
Guys get a day for their birthday. Girls get a week.
At least.
Yeah.
What, your cousin Sarah, I don't know if she listens or not, she gets 3 weeks for her birthday. How did that come about, and why such inequality?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not opposed to guys claiming a week for their birthday. Like,
Yeah,
if
get a week
you're
this year,
yeah,
40th,
when you're
40th.
turning 40, if you want to embrace that, that's
I'm
that's
opposed
you.
to guys getting a week. I'm opposed to anybody getting a week. It's called a birthday.
I think that some of it, I mean, like, I don't know. Again, this is like speaking in a generalization, but I do feel like women are, you know, relational, and they like to like gather friends. And so sometimes it's just a practical thing. It's like, if your birthday is on like a Tuesday, I'm like, I'm not like on a Tuesday, it's like I come home and I'm tired and I want to just like sit on my couch and like watch a TV show or like go for a walk or something like that. But then by like Friday, I want to celebrate with all my friends. And so like, let's just, you know, sometimes it's just practical. It's like, I'd rather schedule out 5 like different birthday gatherings that are like also just excuses to
Wow.
hang out with friends than like to try to pack this all into one stressful evening.
And you've got weird family obligations too, so it's like,
right.
especially like if you're a split family or something, it's like, well, I
Yes.
gotta have birthday dinner with
this side.
this side, and then I've got to have this birthday thing with this side,
Right.
and then I've got this group of friends, but they don't jive with this other group of friends. So
Well-
now I've got to have like all the
I also feel like the older you get, like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people that I'm friends with, like, don't have, like, it's not like you have these huge birthday parties. You know, like when you're a kid, you have one birthday party that, like, anyone who possibly knows you comes to, like, celebrate.
Mhm.
But, like, as an adult, like you said, it's more like, I'm going to have dinner with this person, or I'm going to have lunch with this person, or whatever. And so then that just gets, like, spread out. It's like, oh, like, my spouse's family, we're going to, you know, it's like it just goes down the line. Like, so, yeah, somehow this became a birthday conversation. I don't know.
It's a big part.
I don't
it's
know
a big
how.
part
Yeah,
of
I mean-
the differences.
Oh my gosh.
Can I just bring up something really completely unrelated out of left field before we transition really
Sure.
quickly?
go for it.
So you call them ankle socks or like low rise socks or whatever they're
Yeah.
called. Like have they always like slipped all the way down your feet when your shoes are on,
No,
or is that new?
no. I
Do
mean,
yours do that?
well, it depends on what are we talking like.
Every
Just-
pair of ankle socks I wear now slide down my feet.
Like
into
athletic, like we're talking athletic socks.
Yes, and I'm pretty upset about it. I
No,
just
I
didn't know
don't
if it
ha-
was me.
I don't have that
Okay.
problem. I think
All
it's
right,
just you.
listeners, if anyone else has their ankle socks slip down their shoes, please give
But
us a shout.
for your Sperry's or Sperry's or how? Yeah, Sperry's.
Sperry's.
I don't know why I said it wrong.
Which one? I have
but,
4 pairs.
whichever color.
We know.
I was gonna say hashtag leadership. Whichever pair you feel like wearing. They do make the little I don't know what you call them, like booty socks that have
Yeah,
they
like
have like
footies.
footies. There we go. That's probably better. They have the ones that I have like a little gel kind of things on the back of the back of the foot to keep them up so they don't slide
Okay,
down when
'cause
you're wearing
I'm
loafers.
struggling.
Yeah, I highly recommend them.
So I'm going to bring this back to a focused point. This is good for me to know that like men sit around and talk about clothing options, because I feel like it's always like when I was in college, all my guy friends were like, do you guys
Can I
just like
interrupt?
get together and like talk about like skip its and bop its and like hair ties and have pillow fights, like total just awful generalizations. But I'm glad to
You
know
don't?
that like you guys, oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding.
Jacob, you just cut us off right now. I'm done with this show.
One of my best friends, there you go. Ryan.
So are all the listeners.
Ryan West and I talk about clothes every single day.
Okay, see,
Baseball and
Their
football
baseball and football
uniforms.
uniforms. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Can't.
to your point, I don't know that guys sit around and talk about clothes. I mean, I just want to throw that. Maybe some do. I don't. But anyways, man, that's probably apparent by the way that I dress. But anyways, moving on. It's been fun times in the shallow end. We'll wade into a slightly more, hopefully, serious conversation and talk about this idea that in recent months and years or whatever, I guess, has become more controversial, the idea of guys and girls who are not married or not pursuing each other in some kind of dating relationship being friends.
In Christian circles.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say it's become controversial in Christian circles. It's very normal outside of that, but it's
Right.
become a topic of conversation. And really what I think brought it up was Mike Pence talking about the Billy Graham rule that came out that, he won't meet with women, unless there's another man or another woman in the room. And so we wanted to dive in. I mean, as three people who are all friends, so we kind of lived this out in a very real sense amongst the three of us. What, I guess maybe one of my first questions is, what is on the Christian side, what is the fear in male and female friendships?
I mean, I think for what I observe, like most people expressing, is the fear that it's going to lead to like a romantic interest or something, or that you're going to be crossing boundaries, whether that's emotional or physical or whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, I think what I hear and see most people like expressing is that it's difficult to have just truly platonic friendships between men and women, and be able, because this is coming from like a distinctly Christian circle, like what we're talking about here, and be able to, I guess, pursue holiness. I'm assuming that's kind of the end that people take it to.
Yeah, for when you get in Christian, kind of more conservative evangelical circles, married men are told that, like, I don't know who made this up or who decided this, but you're told that like you should never be, in a room, with a woman who's not your wife, like by yourself. You're told. I know some people that go as far as like if they text a woman, they like include their wife on the text. I mean, like some people are just really, really hardcore about it. And I don't want to make fun of that. There's a lot of times people have reasons for that. So I don't want to make fun of that. I just wonder if that's really the universe we're supposed to live in with our brothers and sisters in Christ. So I just, and I also wonder what it communicates to the person that has to have like, oh, I can't talk to you here. I have to go out in the middle of the mall or something, or or I have to include you on every text. So we need to flesh that out more. But like I'll never give anyone a hard time, for living the Billy Graham rule in their life. I just don't think it needs to be as dogmatic as people make it, because I think it depends on who it is, right? Like I think, I mean, I wouldn't be with. There's certain guys I won't be in a room with by myself, not for weird like reasons of like romance, but just like out of trust, right? Like I don't even mean injury, just like what could be said in the conversation, those type of things. So to me, it's more of a trust thing and a who thing, and it also needs to be just fleshed out a little more, because it's just been made such a blanket statement, like you should never be in a room ever, that kind of thing. It's like, well, hold on here, let's talk through that, and also how does that carry over professionally, for people? What kind of maybe disadvantage would it put someone in, or those type of things. So I think there's a lot there that needs to be discussed.
What? And we'll come back to some of that, I think, and flesh that out. But I don't want this conversation to start inherently negative either. What are the advantages to men and women that are not married to each other, brothers and sisters in Christ, and even, it doesn't have to be just Christian relationships, but what are the advantages? What are the pluses of men and women being friends? Strictly, platonic friendship.
I mean, I would say that one, just get to hear, a totally different kind of what we were just, joking about in sort of like general stereotypical ways in the shallow end. Like you get to hear, the viewpoints and the way that the opposite sex sees the world, and, men and women make up the population. And so we communicate, we live life together. And so, God created man and woman in his image. And so I think and then as Christians, that we are brothers and sisters in Christ. And so if you aren't, just purely have no friendships at all with the opposite sex, then I really think you're missing out on, the other half of the body of Christ, and so, I mean, that's like getting really deep, but I think also just, I've all throughout my life had really solid friendships with guys, and I always really appreciate that. Like it just brings a totally different dynamic than having only female friendships. And, so yeah, I think it's also just something that, yes, I know we see in the Bible that like God obviously designed man and woman to be together in the context of marriage, but I also think that there's something to be enjoyed between male and female friendships, you know, between brother and sisterhood. And we can see that, you know, reflected in a family between like a loving brother and sister who are like actually, you know, biologically related, or, you know, even if it's an adoptive family, or, you know, just within the family unit, that, you know, there's like ties there. But then in friendships, I think we can see that too.
Yeah, and if someone's my sister in Christ, am I really supposed to keep them at that far arm's length?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're like, you know, our relationship can only go as far as like, you know, me just kind of saying hello to you, or talking in the break room when there's 10 people around, or, you know, something along those lines, you know. So I just think it's unfortunate of what, I'm not even talking about the Billy Graham rule. I'm not even talking about that. We're talking just about just friendship in general.
Yep.
I mean, how many in the Christian faith guys, especially married, it's married people, just do not have any genuine friendships, you know, with people of the opposite sex who are their brothers and sisters, you know. So I just think it's just unfortunate. I think it's a lost art of what I think that kind of sister in Christ, brother in Christ relationship has really sort of, now brother to brother, sister to sister, it's fine and healthy, I'm sure. But the brother to sister relationship, sister to brother, I think it's just really kind of lost its just importance and value and significance. I think the church is not better off because of it, honestly.
I think it's interesting too. I mean, you just saying that, Dean, like sometimes I think when I think about like male female friendships that are had by like that I have been a part of, or that you know, like friends, you know, who you're like, oh, I know those two people are good friends or whatever, just from my general observation. So again, this is pure like just from Ashland's corner of the world. This is not, I'm not like making a statement. I actually wonder if a lot of platonic male to female friendships are like can be maybe less toxic sometimes even than friendships with the same gender, because there's, I mean, you think about like, and I know there's just awful stereotypes about like, you know, girls getting into cat fights, or, you know, or like whatever, guys just like punching each other and then getting over it, you know, whatever it is. Like that's kind of how we think about things in these broad, like dumb terms. But you know, there are two people who are wired very similarly together, you know, that's going to create sometimes friction. Sometimes you don't jive with someone because you're so similar to them, and you have to kind of work around that. And so I think the balance that men and women can bring together, sometimes I think that can make for a great friendship where there might not be some of the like pile on, or some of the unique aspects of being friends with someone who's the same sex as you.
Yeah, and we're called to pursue wisdom, right? And things such as that. So I think the way where it can be not a good thing or needs to be questioned is if other people are going, hey, like if you're a married person and you have a good relationship with and it's not just a single person, it's just any other person. It's not about single and married. It's about if you're a married person and you have a woman in your life, and just when people even hear that, it sounds strange, but that's just how much we're wired. But when you have a friendship, you know, with a woman who's not your wife, or a man who's not your husband, and other people maybe start to say, people that you trust say things like, hey, is something going on there? Or y'all's dynamic's a little weird. It just makes it kind of uncomfortable. It just kind of seems like it's beyond, you know, brother, sister. You know, I've noticed some things, you know, how you look at him, how you look at her, you know, how y'all like just those sort of things. Then it's time to go, whoa, okay. Now, that doesn't mean I should never hang out and have another female friend in my life again. It means that particular relationship has red flags around it, you know, and needs to be addressed. And that's what Christian community is about. And that's what brother and sisterhood's about. It might even be another good Christian female friend who he trusts, who tells the married guy, hey, I just noticed
just
that,
looks different.
I mean, like we need, and then another guy might never notice it. Right. So, or if your spouse has an issue, if your spouse is like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with him, I don't feel comfortable with her, it's weird to me that you guys blank. That's when you go, oh, okay, you know, kind of thing. So that does not disqualify friendship. It means that particular relationship has red flags around it. It doesn't mean you can't be friends now for the rest of your life, that you know, you have to include your wife on a text to the, you know, if she asked you to, that'd be different. But then there's that, to me, that's another conversation where you go, hey, what's going on that makes you not trust me there? You know, what have I done? You know, or is it just a thing? Did you have? I think it all comes back to just having healthy, honest people who could speak into your life, right?
Well, and so I mean, the whole thing, as you guys have been talking, that I keep coming back to, and I was thinking about, is I think too often we view relationships across, you know, gender lines, so to speak, male and female friendships, like we too often, and part of this is maybe just the sort of the way that culture has become sexualized, and the awareness. I mean, like, most people know somebody who either like has, directly been impacted by infidelity, or like they're maybe it was their parents, which obviously that's directly impacting, but like their relationship, or a parent's relationship, or a friend, so it's so prevalent and it's so normal that I think like, and I mean, you look at like TV plot lines and things like that, and there's always the cheating kind of like infidelity storyline. It's just like, it's so ingrained in culture that it's hard to imagine like a man and a woman can be friends and nothing else. That's where the brother and sister, like in Christ, brother and sister, or brother and sisters in Christ, like can actually help us frame what friendship should look like. Because if you take that to a biological, I'm not trying to get like weird, but if you take that to a biological, brother and sister, the way that you think about your biological siblings is not and should not be sexual in any way.
Right.
And so, like, that's the view that we have to bring to friendship. And if that's the way that we approach it, obviously we need to be mindful of boundaries of people who say, hey, there's some red flags here. Like, that's definitely true. But at the same time, like, if you're intent and sometimes intent and what happens, down the road, like there's 100 things that happen, get people to places where they compromise, convictions and morals and things like that. But, and I don't want to make light of that. It's not just, okay, whatever. But if you approach like, as a guy, like if I approach a friendship with a female and my assumption is that like, this is going to be maybe too frank, but like they don't want to sleep with me. That's that's out the window. There's no longer any real desire in my mind. It's just like, no, I want to know this person. I want to be a good friend to them. I want to enjoy, the friendship that they have, their perspective, their view of the world, their, whatever it might be, and see them as the same way that I see my biological sister, and so.
And that's theologically how far we've lost the idea of the family of God.
Yeah.
I mean, just really needs to be like just rediscovered,
yeah.
By the church. I mean, technically, and we're really going to go theologically here. I mean, the someone who's a believer that's is your sister in Christ more than your own biological sister, she's not.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird for us to think about because we just come so far from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ashlyn, I'd like to hear you just talk about what it would be like just professionally for you, or I'm not asking you to speak on behalf of every woman on our staff. I like to hear all their perspectives, but you're here. We're all together on this. If like there was a strict like rule here about like Mike Pence rule, Billy Graham rule, that kind of thing. Now for the hearers out there, we're not like we're not crazy. We're not talking about like going to Ruth Chris for dinner and getting dressed up. We're talking about just like if like you could not have a meeting with somebody on staff, or. Well, I feel like my question is too vague and not very clear, but just like we just kind of speak to that experience.
Yeah.
I think as men, Christian circles are becoming more aware of just female voices, and for a long time how much of evangelical Christian culture, especially in the local church, has been kind of a male-dominated world. So how does we just speak to that? I'm sorry, I'm just kind of I never landed the plane on the exact question.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm speaking as a woman, and I'm not married, and so like I'm just speaking as the single female perspective. Like, so there's many perspectives on this, but I also can see and think outside of just my perspective too, and so I'm trying to sort of like what you said. I'm not going to say that this is true for everyone or that this applies to everyone, but this is just how I'm thinking about it. One, I think that a lot of times when we talk about things like the Billy Graham rule and men and women being alone together, it's almost as if we speak about that as if it's like something that we're actively seeking out, that you want to prevent. So like, I don't actively look for ways to have private meetings with men on our staff. That's not like, so if we have to have, if I have to have a meeting with someone to talk about something that is sensitive in nature or that can't be, that isn't a communal conversation, it would be really difficult for me to do my job if I couldn't like just step into a room for a second, and talk to someone, or if I couldn't, sit in my office with a man and talk about something. That would just it would be difficult to do my job, because a lot of my job has to do with conversations that they're not these top secret things, but they don't need to all be had in the context of our entire staff or in the context of a group even. And I think in ministry, that's true, whether it's counseling or just talking about important things within the life of your church. That needs to be, sometimes there does need to be some privacy there. And so but I also think, I can be respectful if there's a man on staff who says, I don't feel comfortable being alone, in the room with a woman. To me, I would look at that as, that's a decision that you have made, and I can respect that, and I can love my brother in Christ. I may not know why that decision was made, and if that's not shared with me, like I'm probably not going to press into that. That's just me. Where I think it does become a problem I do think that when you kind of state that as sort of like this rule that, someone automatically has to then follow, and you don't share or you don't give any context, well, then it sort of puts the awkwardness on me to be like, okay, I just want to go about the day and do my job. I don't want to have to think about, who am I in a room with right now? Is it weird for them? Am I the threat here? That's where I think it becomes unfair, is like putting sort of the fault or the pressure onto the woman. You could switch those roles too, I think. So, you could change the man and the woman in those roles, and it would still apply. So I think that communication there is helpful. The other thing that is interesting to me when I think about, and again, I don't know. I don't think I know anyone who practices the Billy Graham rule, to the fullest extent. I don't know. Someone might just not be coming to mind, but this does not I don't deal with this on a day-to-day basis. But when we get really anxious about, men and women being in spaces together, what I hear being a much bigger problem is women who are taken advantage of by men when they're alone together. Then I hear some type of compromise in, I think we're dealing a lot more as stories come out about women who have been abused or who have been taken advantage of or who have been pressured into, compromising themselves for some type of professional gain, whatever that is. To me, that's a much bigger problem, And so if you are a man who really can't trust yourself to not take advantage of a woman if you're alone with her, you probably should not be in whatever profession you're in, and you probably should be seeking help. And maybe you are, and if that's the step, if that's one of the boundaries that you have to put up, I respect that. I really do. I would rather somebody say, I can't even be in this room right now because I don't trust myself, than to go in, because they're trying to bust some type of awkward rule or stereotype or whatever. But man, I'm just like, if that's where we are, that is a big problem. And that is where we are in a lot of places. And so, and I think that, so yeah, I mean, what I want for our staff is for men and women to be able to interact with each other, and to honor one another, to honor one another's bodies, and to honor one another's lives and your character and your integrity. Because that's the other thing too, is it's not just about let me make sure that I don't, break a rule or don't cross a line. It's I think about the good of my fellow brothers and sisters. So this isn't just about me. This is about them too, and them more than me. We're supposed to consider others as more important than ourselves. And so I think if you actually live out that integrity, then, then that is going to change the way that, you interact with men and women. And the other thing I was thinking about, and this is sort of a brief tangent and then I'll wrap up, is Alex, when you were talking about between friendships, I just think about how early on the expectation is put into our brains and our lives that every male-female relationship has to meet some romantic end. So even as a kid, it's when girls and boys are playing together, what do people love to say? They're like, ooh, he's cute, she likes you. No, maybe they're just friends, and maybe we need to teach kids from the start what it looks like to have male-female friendships that honor one another, that that there is emotional closeness, there is love and care for one another in a way that's not sexual. And I just believe to my core that that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, as you talk about that, I even think of in culture. I can't think of an example of like a kids movie, a Disney movie, where it's not in some way like a relational
like a
love interest. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean, anything from I don't know, Cinderella, which again it's kind of young boys and girls see that story and it ends in this romantic love.
Cinderella needed a social worker, not a prince to come sweep her off her feet. I just want to put that out there. She needed someone to rescue her from her evil stepmother.
There you go. I'm not even gonna touch that because
yeah. And I haven't seen that in so long. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's actually true.
yeah, I was like,
Did not age well.
Yeah, so many Disney shows did not end well.
Most of
Or
things
age well.
have.
Yeah, also, there's just some wisdom things. Again, so much of the stuff is just don't be dumb. Like, if things aren't good at home in your marriage, like, it's, the person you should be running to about that is probably not your close, your close female. That's not your close female friend's issue. It's your issue, right back home. Like, affairs just don't happen. There's a slow leak that happens, and they don't happen because, oh, we have a good relationship. No, they happen because something else is broken somewhere else. And like you said, usually the female becomes the victim or the blame or the one that gets the stuff. And the answer people think sometimes is, oh, well, if you had enacted the Billy Graham rule, then this wouldn't have happened. You think people that enact the Billy Graham rule have never in their life, some people ever in the history of the world have never had an affair? It's bigger than that, right? It's big. No, it's no. If you weren't dealing with your issues, then things never would have happened. If you're already at the point where you're having an affair, there's no boundaries in place already, right? You're already crossing them along the way. You've crossed 5 already. If you're getting to that point. So again, I'm not making fun of the Billy Graham rule. I know people I really trust that follow it. And I'm not making fun of it. Like Ashlyn said, she's going to respect her brothers that or whoever it might be, sisters that choose that. I would advocate for people more of just wisdom in a way that still allows us to function well and to have deep friendships and relationships with the opposite sex as Christians. And also, like, I rarely know someone who doesn't have a close relationship with the opposite sex that's married that person also isn't like connected to their family. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like isolated, not that it's not this isolated, who is that person, who is that guy, kind of relationship. Usually they're also like connected. Like it's because it's an actual real friendship and relationship that oftentimes accompanies the entire family, where they know the person's spouse and they know the person's, kids, and they know their sibling, that kind of thing, So I'm not saying it has to be that way, but most I know are like that. And I think that's really healthy.
I think we also, we kind of try, and it makes sense because we want to be able to define things, but I think sometimes we try to jump to, conclusions or to, maybe not extremes, but okay, before we even get to the Billy Graham rule, can you, if you're in, so I'm going to talk about, maybe a Christian conference or something like that, or a network gathering. If you walk into a room that's mixed company, are you going to seek out somebody of the opposite sex and try to talk to them? Not in a weird, creepy way, but if you feel like you have to awkwardly avoid, if you're a woman and you can't talk to any men, you can't ask them a question. How's your family doing? What's your church life like right now? Things like that. Truly out of wanting to know someone, just being a good friend, being a fun person to be around. I would say that's a way that someone could step out of their comfort zone before we even get to, can you be alone in a room together? It's can you be in a room in a group together and talk to each other? Or do you feel the need to ignore the opposite sex in the room because you just don't know what to say? Some of these things I think we try to overthink, or we try to chase it to the full end. It's let's just not overthink it and just say, yeah, I have something to learn from men. I can ask their perspective on something. I can care about some of the things that they care about that might not be, I don't care about sports uniforms, but you guys talk about them all the time. So now I know, and so you can care about things that's just part of loving your neighbor, is taking things that somebody else thinks are important, and they may not be as important to you, but you can engage them. We can be open-minded people. So I think in that sense, before we jump all the way to, these extreme ends, it's well, let's also just think about, and I mean, for women, gosh, women are, they can make decisions emotionally. I don't want to like play up that stereotype of like the over emotional woman, but when you think about, affairs and relationships that become problematic, like that, and I think that's true with men too, though. I think it's, it starts in your mind, there's a thought that then, it goes from there. And so I think as women, you have to be, women have to be careful to be, sort of like what you said, Dean. It's if there's something that you feel like you're lacking or that you don't have, you can't be looking to anything to fill that, but you can't be looking to another man who doesn't belong to you to fill that gap. And so I think that's where you have to, like, we all just have to check ourselves. But before we jump to those ends, let's just say, okay, let me trace my behaviors back all the way, to the beginning and see, like, was I actually able to have an appropriate relationship with that person from the start, or with someone of that gender from the start? And I think there's a lot of, asking ourselves honest questions that we can do, and to get there.
So what are some ways in that men and women, and Ashlyn, you brought up, I think your example of just like stepping into a room of, mixed company and talking to somebody of the opposite gender is a great first step. What are additional ways for people to cultivate friendships with, men or women of the opposite sex?
To cultivate?
Yeah.
I would say, I just think it's about making friends in general. Like I don't think you need to just wake up in the morning and go, I need to be friends with more girls, or I need to be friends with more guys. I think it's just building friendships where you are and who you're around, and wanting to get to know someone and wanting to be in their life, getting to know your coworkers well, your neighbors well, your kids, friends, parents well. So I think, to me, it's kind of more about that. Like I don't think every Christian guy needs to go, I need to go find 3 new, I know that's not what you're saying, but I don't think that, just for clarity, I don't think the answer is I need to go find 3 good girlfriends. I think the answer is, hey, okay, I have some people I enjoy at my office, and we work, and we enjoy each other. Some of them are guys, some of them are girls, and I'm not going to keep this in this platonic, there's nothing weird, person at arm's length just because they're a female. I'm going to invite this person into our group and into our, into our hanging out, and just really try to be a good friend to that person. And if that relationship grows, and we're going to, I want them to be around my family and those type of things. Or, so I think more, and guys and girls are different. We as Christians, we believe in gender, so we're not trying to say it's all the same. I'm not saying that either. But that I don't want to exclude someone from a relationship in terms of us all going to lunch together, or being able to talk to somebody one-on-one in the office place, or whatever, to strategize together or dream about the vision of our workplace together, whatever it might be, because that person is a different gender than me. So I think the cultivation looks like just building friendships where you are, and just keeping that relationship one that's Christ-centered. And by Christ-centered, I don't mean sit around and talk about Jesus the whole time. I mean that what we believe to be true about following Jesus impacts that relationship in terms of what's appropriate and what's not, in terms of what I say and what I don't, how I treat that person, all those things really kind of packaged into one. And I just think that's pretty darn important.
Yeah, I think work is a great place a great way to step out and make new friends. I think that, sort of going back to the shallow end, when you guys are talking about men forming friendships over common interests, I think that can be a great way, but also a way that you do probably have to be cautious in making friends with the opposite sex. Like, so if you're in, a running club, and there's, like I'm a woman, if there's a man who's in that running club, that's a common interest that we can bond over. Any friendship blossoms when there's some type of shared common interest, right? That just helps, kind of unite you around something. So I think that's a great way. I think it also, can quickly lead to, okay, now we're both passionate about the same thing, and we're probably going to see each other regularly. It's a way that affairs, can sometimes be enabled. And so again, we've already, talked about all the ways to know thyself and to, put boundaries in place or whatever. But but that can be, because the other thing too is that friendship, like, can also, life in the Christian life is communal, and so that can also happen in community. Like, I think we also like try to put these standards on things where it's like, okay, you can, like, if you have a work friend, it's okay to have a friend that you're like only friends with at work around other people, and like you don't hang out all the time.
Totally.
Yep.
Like, that doesn't mean that you're not friends. It's just like that's the place where you are friends, and that doesn't mean if you want to take that outside of work, great. If you don't, that's okay too. So like,
That's
you
well
can
said.
you can say, hey, I have a guy friend in my running club, and that's where we're friends. I don't have to have him over for dinner 4 times a month to prove that we're real friends, So, I think that's okay too, especially I'm thinking, about not just married people, but, if you sense maybe that a relationship could have the risk, like the chemistry is there for that to move beyond the context that you're in. Like, that's a great way, I think, to put kind boundaries in place, to say, I'm going to protect this friendship. And let it not grow beyond that into something that would be unholy. So I do think common interests can be a great way to make friends. And there was another one, but I forgot it.
I think that work and running club analogy is great, or example is great. Like, we can just be like in a good, healthy relationship at work, where we get along, we have conversations, we laugh sometimes, all those type of things, and that's where it ends with this certain person. Like, they're not Instagram 5 pictures on their birthday status, right?
Right.
Yeah, but there might be relationships that we have people we've met at work, and they come to our house and have dinner with our family, and those type of things. And
But I will say, like, and from talking to other female friends that I have who are single, because one thing I was going to say is I also understand that as a married couple, you do become like one unit, and so I think that's great when married couples can like make, the husband and the wife can both be friends with one person,
I think that's important.
And it's not like here's our one friend, where it's not like this mentor thing, or like we let you, it's like we're all friends,
Just friends, yep,
we're just friends, so I think that's a great thing too. So I totally get that, like wanting to make friends with people as a married couple. I think that's great and important. I also think, from talking to some of my other female friends who are single, like one of the best things is having single male friends where there's not this immediate like pressure of like, is this going to go somewhere? So I think like I'm speaking to men and women, I think one of the best things you can do, but probably in Christian circles, this probably goes more onto the guy, is to like be mature and adult enough to say like, this can just be a friendship. Now I get, if you have an interest, like you got to do whatever you got to make a decision about whether to
Shoot your shot.
Yeah, shoot your shot, I guess. But and I probably sound like, nobody wants to, this is like such a girl thing to be like, it's just great to have guy friends, and meanwhile the Christian guys are over here like, well, single girls are annoying, but whatever, go back to your Young Professionals Network. But I do think that's something that I think, because as Christian women, like there's so many, like, let's just be honest, like Christians are weird about relationships. And so like, they can be really great, but they can be really weird. I think it's just nice to have, I think women, because women are relational, if you can have the maturity to like have these good friendships with men, like that's a great thing, and so that's something that, I think about.
To follow that up, and I'm thinking of a friend who is single, and she has this tendency to think like, so I'm kind of thinking about, okay, how does the guy, kind of enter the strictly platonic, friendship arena without, because the thing that I hear is like, this guy, he's just creepy, and I mean, sometimes guys are creepy, and then I think other times like it's a desire for friendship, and it comes across as like, I don't have this category maybe for friendship, and or the flip side, maybe like there's a female who just wants to be friends with a guy, and like, but the guy's like, I don't, like, so I mean, I don't know, I'm looking at you, Ashlyn, but I don't, it just, how does that happen, to where it's the girl shouldn't assume all the time that this guy is creepy, and the guy also shouldn't assume, all the time that like, oh, maybe this is going somewhere,
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard because I in a way, there's maybe not like everything is, it's like perception is reality in some of these situations, but at the same time, it's like if you are being creepy, don't be creepy, you know, or if you're like, I'm speaking as a
Just
girl.
don't be creepy.
If a guy's being creepy, like, then I'm not going to want to be around him, married or not married, you know, just, I don't like creepy people. So creepy people stay away. But also, like, have enough emotional maturity and self-awareness that, like, sometimes we read into things and it's almost like I think if you are a woman who you think every man that like says anything remotely positive to you is like saying that in a flirtatious way, or you call him creepy, like, you might not need to read into things, you know what I mean? Like, don't always be looking for some type of like self-affirmation. Sometimes girls do that because, you know, or I mean, maybe guys do that too, I don't know, but that's immature to be like, oh my gosh, he gave me a compliment, you know, he's so creepy. You know, it's like, just be an adult and take the compliment. So I do think that you can't read into things always. I think it's also, there's nothing wrong with just being clear, you know what I mean? Just being direct, like, hey, I like hanging out with you. Let's just be friends, you know, let's just leave it at that. It's my line. You know, and then letting that, like, and then actually following through on that, not like 3 weeks later then trying to like again shoot your shot when it's like, no, we're done here. So yeah, I mean, I think you just, I mean, we all like we have so much self-interest, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes like we are the center of our world, and that impacts us in ways that we can't always recognize. And so if I tell a guy on our staff, hey, I like your shirt, that's not like a loaded statement. That's just me being like, I like your shirt. It looks good.
I'm into uniforms.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, you know, and vice versa. Like, if
I enjoy a good gingham pattern.
Right. If someone's like, you know, you got a haircut, it looks nice today, you don't have to like then run to the bathroom and be all flustered. It's like, just, you're an adult, like, take the compliment. So I those are the kinds of things where, I mean, I'm using kind of like dramatic, you know, simplified examples, but yeah,
it gets the point across.
You can easily, and I've now belabored this way too long, but I agree with you that people sometimes read into things way too much, and I think that goes back to just highlight and prove how we a lot of times approach relationships with that filter in our mind of like, okay, we're so prone to see things in terms of like romantic relationships, and that just isn't always there, and you need to let it not be there.
Dean, one thing I wanted to ask you, because I think like I've seen this modeled really well from you and Chrissy, like, you guys have friends who, you know, oftentimes they're single, but you also have friends that you're couples with that you guys are just good friends with. Both of you are good friends with either the couple or the individual across, you know, gender, if it's a mixed, you know, if it's a couple and they're, you know, but like, what have you guys done to maybe in your marriage to establish that trust and to just let that be kind of a pattern and a habit of your life? Is there something that you did intentionally, or is that how you guys have always been? I think you've modeled it really well, and so I think you have wisdom maybe to share with others on that and how to cultivate that.
No, I appreciate that. One, we're both really relational people. You know, we want our home and our lives to be shared with other people. We're like a more the merrier kind of group, you know, like, so like we enjoy like having people in our home, and that can be multiple nights a week, and that's great. You know, we want people to stay and hang out, and so I just think our lives are to be given away, and I think it's sad when people get married and they withdraw themselves, you know, rather than just engage even more together with people. So also for us, like, we just don't make things, I guess. So it's just never really been this anything other than we want to be in people's lives and have relationships with people, you know. So I think that, and also be consistent with it, you know, like, we're not like you came over one time and you're never coming over again. Like, that people that are over regularly and that we're connected to, that you know. So I don't have a great principle to give outside of, like, I think God designed us to share our lives with each other. And I think it's really sad when marriage like slows that down, or when marriage maybe then all of a sudden puts you only with other married couples. I just think that's sad. You know, I just don't think that's how we were made to be. And we don't even really think of it in our minds as like a single person, a married person, that type of thing. We just see it more as like these people who are our friends, or people who we want to get to know better, you know, or people that we just want to be able to kind of come over and just have a meal cooked for them and chill, let them just relax, you know, for a night and just laugh a little bit and be around other people. Or have a cool, deep, fun conversation about theology or church or whatever, something along those lines. So it's just always been our lives. So I just encourage people to build your life that way. You know, it's not an introverted or extroverted thing. It's a relational thing, and just make it where that's part of what we do as a family. Like, our kid, like, it's funny, like, it's not a rare occasion for Ty to walk out, my middle son, and go like, "Who's coming over tonight?" that kind of thing. Like, it's almost like expected. That's like what we do,
Yeah.
As a family.
Your house is full.
And I hope it's always like that. Like I grew up like that. Like, we always have people in our house, and I think it just really matters.
Yeah, that's good. Any final thoughts on male and female friendships before we transition?
I mean, nothing new, but just to kind of reiterate that I think, especially in the context of the church and, Christian ministry, I just think that it is worth it to, even if you have to have like awkward conversations, or even if you have to clarify things, from time to time. I think sometimes we shy away from things because they're difficult, or maybe not even difficult. They're just complex, but that's what life is. Life is complex. And so if you are someone who I think struggles to have good, healthy friendships with the opposite sex, beyond, extreme reasons, like you're getting treatment for something or something like that, or, maybe if you've been in an abusive relationship, like all of those kind of dynamics aside, just purely talking about male and female friendships, I think it is worth it to press through the awkwardness or the complexities or whatever it is, to be able to enjoy that friendship together. I think it benefits the church. I think it glorifies the Lord. I think it is a great witness to the world when we can do that. The history of Christianity has shown a lot of ways that we have not done that well. And so I think if we can be redemptive in our friendships, then I think that is a great witness to a world that needs to see healthy relationships.
Yeah, that's good. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just think this has been a really good conversation, and I think that we can't just be this is how it has to be, like, or you're foolish. I just think that just leaves no room for just healthy Christian relationships, and I think people are going to carry this out differently in their lives. Others know what they're vulnerable to, and I think a lot of it's listening to people. If you have if your wife is like, I don't feel good about that person, or if your friend, your other kind of single friend is like, hey, that guy's married, like he's got a different motive here, and I can just see it. You're like, oh, no, we're just, it's like, just listen to people, because they're not going to say something to you unless they truly actually see something and care, and let people ask questions without getting defensive. Anything going on there? No, I swear. Okay, I just check in. That kind of thing. It's just those type of things, and I think that's just part of life, right? Part of the Christian life, and I think that it's a real shame if we see brother-sister relationships not be strong for the future of the church because we're trying to please others who don't think we should. I just don't think that's the way to operate.
Yeah, and I think the idea that, just to use like Mike Pence as an example, I don't know him personally. I've never met him, probably never will, but like he may actually have good female friendships.
Sure.
And,
totally.
Yeah.
And so just because somebody has put, measures that they and or their spouse feel are wise for them in place doesn't mean that they're failing in this regard or not. You could have no Billy Graham rule and not have friends of the opposite sex. It's so it's not an either or, and nobody's saying that. But yeah, just to allow, have good friends, but at the same time use wisdom in the way that you go about doing that.
And Pence has been in Washington D.C. forever.
Right.
He was a congressman, and then he's governor of Indiana still. But like if you're, it's like the most shady,
it's the most
untrustworthy place in the world.
Yeah.
So that might be his reasons behind it. Is he doesn't want anyone to ever go, oh, I saw Pence and this and that, and that's why I tell them, never make fun of someone for it. I'm gonna trust their judgment for it.
Right.
Where the conversation has to happen, though, that's bigger. That is like, well, what does that mean for somebody professionally that works with him?
Yes.
Is that demeaning to them? Is that preventing them from advancing or from being able to have an important meeting? And that's where I think it needs to have some nuance to it.
1,000%.
Rather than just like, I will not meet with a woman. Like that's where I'd be concerned if I feel like women are being hindered or being held back professionally because of not having access to him in a way that a male would.
Yes, 100%. As we wrap up this part of the conversation, hope it was helpful, and we'll transition to the Local on Tap segment as we just take a few seconds to highlight folks that we feel in our church are living well on mission and kind of, exhibiting really, and I think in our eyes, what it means to be a City Church member. So who we got?
I'm going to go with Kevin Kite. Kevin works at Chick-fil-A. Shout out to Christian fast food. And he just is such a hard worker, and he treats people so well. And he tells me stories about people that he's, sharing the gospel with at work and inviting to church. And he's just a guy that just really sees his job as a ministry. And when you're there and see him working, it's really, really obvious. I have a lot of respect for Kevin in general as just a man, but just watching him, how he does work is just always been impressive to me. So I'm going to go with Kevin Kite.
Cool.
I am going to go with Megan Browning. So she is one of my friends who works at Zimmerman Agency in town. And she just, anytime that you talk to Megan, you're like, I think if you walk away like not encouraged and not just like pumped up like about life in general, then something you like need to check your pulse, something's wrong. But she just is so encouraging. And it's been a while since we have actually sat down over like a meal, but I remember the last time we were having lunch, she was just talking about how, you know, people at work know that she's a Christian and just how she, you know, kind of balances that with having great relationships with people. It's not like, oh, Megan's a Christian, I have to avoid her. It's like they come to her for things, and they can even laugh about differences in her life versus theirs. Not that that's something to laugh about, but you know, they can make observations, and it's just a natural part of conversation. But it's also not something where, you know, she is like, she just lives it out well, you know, and so I think, you know, she's just awesome, and she's faithful to our church, and I know exhibits what it means to live in community. And so just thankful for her, always really encouraged and inspired by her.
Yeah, she does really have like a well-rounded idea or practice, I should say, of what we want a city church member to be. Mm-hmm. Like, she's very connected to her friends here. She's made great friends through her city group. Yep. I think like her closest kind of knit community. And at the same time, she is very much on mission in the city, you know, in secular realm. So yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Caleb Hall. So Caleb
Nice.
is a, you know, professionally he works for Lucky Goat. Shout out to the best coffee in Tallahassee. No offense, Starbucks. But you know, so drinking local.
Easy.
But no, I mean, really, I think things that you guys have echoed about Kevin and Megan, like really hard worker. Cares a lot, so he oversees like the whole wholesale and distribution side of stuff, and cares really well for his employees. Works incredibly hard. Had to figure out how to do his job for a season when he couldn't drive, which is very difficult considering he used to drive to like fix coffee machines and get delivery orders and stuff because of some medical stuff. And so, but like wants to see his people that he, you know, leads come to know the Lord, the customers that he interacts with, to do that in a way that honors Christ. And you know, he also is married to one of our worship leaders, Gianna, who's awesome, and he serves the church tremendously through the way that he allows her to have the platform that she does by, you know, when she's singing, to be up early and taking care of the kids. And so Caleb Hall comes to mind. But
did you guys notice that we all picked people who are the same gender as us?
That's funny.
To undermine our whole conversation.
Yeah, we're doing the Billy Graham shout-out rule.
Yeah, there you go. I just had to laugh about that.
That's really funny. So awesome. Well, thank you all for listening, and we hope to see you next week for another episode of The Local Dive.
Thanks for listening to The Local Dive, a podcast diving into deep and shallow musings about Christ, the church, and culture. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow The Local Dive on social media and continue the conversation with us on Instagram and Twitter at The Local Dive Pod.